so many directions. Oh, the road looked the same. He gave me instruction. Oh, I disregarded and changed. Then sudden destruction. Oh, soon came my way. And I'll just have to say, all I've got is myself to blame. He never left me. He never left me. Oh, when I turned my back on him, I was living in a world of sin. I was trying to run away again, but he never left me. He never left me. Oh, when I chose to walk away, even when I forgot how to pray, listen, he never left me. Now I chose the wrong road.
You ever done that?
Oh, 'cause it looks so good to me. I was walking blindly onward. Lord, I just couldn't see. I was lost and I was dying. Oh, Lord, but now I'm trying. You know, I've reached out to Jesus.
Yeah, that's all it took.
Yeah, and Jesus reached out to me. He never left me. He never left me. Oh, when I turned my back on him, I was living in a world of sin. You know, I kept trying to run away again, but he never left me. He never left me. Oh, when I chose to walk away, even when I couldn't pray, you know, he never left me. Oh, when I couldn't pray, he never left me.
Amen. That's good stuff, man. Come on, brother.
Bless their hearts. Bless them real good, Lord. All right. We're going to be in the book of Exodus for just a little while. Let me take just a moment to insert something into here. First of all, let me appreciate the posting of Tim and Marcia this week for our memory garden. A lot of people say, what's a memory garden? It's a garden where you remember people. Simple as that. But it takes a lot of work to keep that garden up out there. So I hope you'll take the time to thank the people who do what you don't do. See, you can volunteer anytime you want to. We'll let you cut grass, you ain't going to do. Memory garden's important to us. Since we're just a young church, just think we was 100 years old. how many names would be out there. Larry, you can't hear me, can you? You better get your thing out and lay it up here now, because I don't want you to miss a word today. All right. Larry and I carry on about that. There's a couple of names I know that need to be added to it. The reason I'm asking you this, if you have a family member that's passed away and it's not out there, please let us know and we'll get it added. Sometimes they come too fast and we don't get them added in, but I know of two that we've got to add to it. That's from November until now, and there's been many others. You also, if a member of your family has passed away and you want their name out there, that can be done also. I think we've got quite a few out there now, but there's always more plates we can put out there to insert that into. So say a thank you to Tim and Marcia when you can today after church or during church if you feel like it. Lord leads you to do it. Just do it during church. It ain't going to affect me one bit. You can even get up and thank the Lord. It won't bother me none today. Wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't hurt me. Now, I done something crazy. I bought 2 pair of glasses today, and they have bonded in my pocket. So it's going to take a minute of speculation to get them out. That's what happens when you buy cheap glasses. They hang together real fast, right? Hope you're having a great Mother's Day. Angie and I lost our mom 2011, April 15, 2011, been 14 years ago this year. Never gets any easier, I promise you that, especially when you had a mama that you remember greatly and that has an impact on you. And we could choose today to talk about bad mothers and all this kind of stuff, but I want to talk about some exceptional mothers today. And let me just say this to you ladies in here. If you didn't have an exceptional mother, that should not stop you from trying to be an exceptional mother. You ought to want to make a difference in your children. I hear people, well, my mom never did. Well, you can't go back and change what's been done, but you can change what's ahead. You can be an exceptional mother because you've got children and grandchildren. We all have people in front of us. You can actually be an exceptional mother even if it's not your child. You can become a mother figure to that. I don't want to just talk about mothers to say, what about mother-in-laws? Mother-in-laws can make an exceptional difference in people's lives if they choose to do that. You don't have to, you know what I've learned in life most importantly though, is that family is not always about blood, but it's always about love. And thank God we've learned that lesson through the years. We live in an age of blended families. And some kids have not learned to love both sides. That's a tragedy. But then again, some women have not learned to love their own children with the same vigor that they love other children. Because in the end, we'll all give an account of how we treated young people. We'll stand before the Lord one day. An old story in the Bible, I'm sure you know it, Exodus chapter 2. As soon as I say that, most of you Bible readers, y'all going to say, oh, I know where he's at. Good old Jochebed, yeah, you can't go wrong doing it. What an exceptional woman she was, but I have some others that I want to share with you for just a few minutes. I guess I should do this just to be sure, because I don't want nobody to be late for the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Are y'all taking your mama out to dinner? Do you know what I found? Some folks in here making their mama cook for them today. Now, you're talking about something that ain't right. That ain't right. Is anybody can't grill or boil hot dogs? You can sure boil water and put hot dogs in it, or you can turn the grill and put a hot dog on it. You know, it doesn't have to be fabulous. It just has to be thoughtful. Just be thoughtful today to your mothers. And I wish I could tell you, for those of you who have your mother left, gosh, how thankful you ought to be. How thankful you ought to be. Even if they're bad mothers, they're still your mother. Exodus 2 and verse 1. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him, that he was goodly child, she hid him for 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of the bramble bush and dabbed it with slime, with which pitched, and put the child in it. And she laid it in the flags by the river. Jochebed. You know, Jochebed had the opportunity to become the mother of 3 of the most recognizable children in the Bible. Her oldest child was Miriam. If you read the Old Testament much or watch Gone with the Wind on TV, you know who Miriam is. That's the oldest child of Jochebed. The next child is Aaron. We all know who Aaron is. He went with his brother Moses. And the one talked of here is the youngest child called Moses. What a mother Jochebed was. Sacrificed something greatly. And that's a little bit about what I'd like to highlight for you today. You can't forget any of these great women in the Bible. You're going to find out what great faith it takes when you look at Jochebed. You go to Lois and Eunice, and you're going to find a mother and grandmother who knew the details of teaching their children God's law. Okay, let me just say that again to you. Teaching God's law. Sometimes we mothers and fathers, we think we've done something when we sit down and read the Bible with our children. That's not teaching God's law. That's reading God's Word. Teaching God's law is helping children understand what the will of God is for our life and our purpose. Not just you shouldn't steal or you shouldn't cuss, but God's law goes much deeper than that. And we have to read it and share it with our children. Lois and Eunice were great at that. What about Elizabeth? Elizabeth's a woman who sacrificed. The mother of John the Baptist, what a great sacrifice she made. And how she. What about Naomi? What about that mother-in-law who tried to push her husband's daughter back since they'd all died? But no, everybody knows the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 16. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be mine. That was Ruth talking to Naomi, her mother-in-law, because her mother-in-law had such a great influence on her life. So I want to first talk about Jochebed, if I could, just for a moment. What a name. She was of the Levi tribe, and we all know, if we study much, we know that the Levites were the religious tribe of the children of Israel, and that's where your religious leaders came out of. But here you have this woman who's a Hebrew woman, and she's had children, but now she's had, why? She's hiding Moses in the bramble bush. Well, she hid him because there was a decree that went out. You go back to Exodus chapter 1, you find about the decree. First, the midwives were told to kill the firstborn son that came next. And they refused to do it, and so then Pharaoh declared that the firstborn son of each woman there born would be destroyed or killed. Save the girls, but kill the boys. That was Pharaoh's plan. He didn't want men coming up to be great fighters. He wanted them to have the women so they could pass them on as their concubine and whatever. That was just a way of life under that tyranny that they lived under. But this woman, she refused to do as she was commanded to do. Now, let me just first say to you without question, if you read this and study it. First thing that Jochebed had was faith. Faith. It's amazing in this day and time in which we live that some of our women and some of our parents, they want our children to know what we don't know. They want our kids to practice what we don't practice. We want our kids to learn what we fail to learn. In other words, a lot of mothers are saying to you, do as I say, not as I do. Faith, first of all, has to be, if you want to do something for your child, you want to teach your child something, you first have to know what you're teaching and know how to live it and know what it means. Do you have faith? Well, are we talking about the chair? Are we talking about the steps? Are we talking about the Lord? Having faith goes many different areas. We're not talking about a chair or a pathway. We're talking about a human life. Do you trust God with everything? See, when we get saved, we should surrender all that we have to Him. All that we have to Him. Now, if you're not born into a godly home, you'll never understand what it's like to surrender all your children to Him. But you can't give to God what you haven't given yourself. You say, well, I want my child to be a Christian. Listen, we can come up here and sprinkle, or we can baptize, we can do all those things. That does not make your child a child of God. You must be born again. From children up. Listen, you ought to baptize them early. You ought to be teaching early. But the truth comes when they've been under the Word long enough to know and realize they need to be saved. Now, how would a child recognize that if there's not somebody in that child's life who's teaching them what it means to be saved, how to be saved? And what a precious thing if we could ever just get you to know the joy in sitting down and leading your child to Jesus. You'll never overcome that joy and victory in your life. She first had to have the faith to believe what she believed before she could move forward with her life. We can't teach people what we don't have. If we're going to be instructors of young women, young men, then we have to have the proper credentials to be an instructor. How can we know how to teach somebody to follow Christ when we ourselves do not follow Him? She had great faith. That was her life. She had a testimony that said, I will follow the Lord. I recognize what a terrible day this is for Christians in a lot of ways. She's strong, but, listen, you don't just lose your mama less than a year ago and not go through a time of pain. Good Lord, I'm 14 years and I still want to cry with my mama. It's been, but you never get rid. But what a strong. But this is what I recognize. Her mother did not teach her just tears. Her mother taught her strength and faith, how to trust God, how to walk with God. And that's a heritage you can never, ever lose when you're taught by someone. Jacob, she said, I can't do this. See, that's what faith does. Faith gives you the courage. Watch it now. See, do you have courage? See, faith gives you courage to stand against things that you wouldn't normally stand against. A lot of mothers won't stand against the world. We talking in prayer time this morning. Darrell made my heart feel better when he said Chicago was talking about two little children took their Bible to school with them, and the school system took the Bibles away and said, you cannot bring that in here. Well, I'm glad it wasn't down south, but it don't matter where it's at. Where are Mom and Daddy at? We become afraid to stand up in our faith and say, no. Federal law says that I can carry my Bible anywhere I want to go. Federal law says I can pray anywhere I want to go. You can't tell me I can't pray at school. I may not be able to take my Bible and show you a Bible verse, but I can certainly read my own Bible. That's a federal law. You can't take that away. But unless we have strong people that stand in their faith and say, my child has this right, or you will not come. See, the Roman law said, we're going to kill your son. And Jochebed said, no, you're not going to kill my son. I will stand against the government if I know, don't say that word. Don't say that word. I'll stand against the evilness of the world. Does that sound better to you? If I say, I'll stand against evilness. Because somewhere along the way, I just ask you, is there any mama, daddy, parent, sister, brother, looking at mama's day, grandma, if you just let your child be taken over by the world without putting up one heck of a fight, would you give your child to the world and say, you do what you want to with them? Not intentionally, no. But it happens. Our faith must be strong enough that we are willing to have the courage to say, this is not going to fly with me. I am thrilled that in our land in which we live, I hope you don't take this in a political way, but I hope you understand, it's about time that parents took back the right to teach and educate their children. I don't mind you teaching my child something, but be sure you teach them right and not wrong. And it's not about political affiliation. It's about right and wrong. It's about Learning how to respect people. Hey, dude. How you doing, dude? I remember I had a little boy one time. He kept coming. He said, how you doing, Donnie? 5-year-old kid. How you doing, Donnie? After about 2 weeks, I stopped and I said, you can call me preacher. You can call me Brother Donnie. Or you can call me Mr. Benefield. But don't call me Donnie. And the kid didn't mean no harm. You know what? I found out later on he called his mom and daddy by their first name. That's all he knew to do. I thought, well, can't get on the kid about that, you know. So I told him he called me Donnie. You can't teach him what he hadn't been taught. The theory is that if we're going to lead our children, we have to be mothers, and I'm just preaching. I'm glad Father's Day is coming real quick, boy. Be a different tone during Father's Day, won't it? Because we men are held to a higher standard, aren't we? That we ought to not just be leading our family, but leading our mothers also. Jochebed, she said, you're not going to do this to my family. You're not going to kill my son. You're not going to take him from me. Faith, exceeding excellent faith. Faith has courage. 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 You know what courage is? Let me just give you a modern day answer to courage. Courage is saying, no, we won't come to the house party with us alcohol because our children can see the influence of it. No, we're not going to allow our child to go play baseball on Sunday. Oh, you're talking about a holy nightmare. Good God, we got that going on nowadays. My children have to go to, why? Because some system says we're going to do it on Sundays. You know, it's having the courage to say, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to say my child cannot participate in that. If enough families said no, it would change. Just like many other issues in our life today. Courage is something, y'all ever heard the term mama bear? Y'all ain't heard that? Good God, some of y'all have been shut up for life, ain't you? You know what a mama bear is, don't you? That's somebody eats you alive about their children. Because that's the first lesson you learn in the woods is don't mess with a mama bear. Because a mama bear will attack you quicker than anything. You don't want to mess with a mama bear's child. I think we need some women today who become mama bears. Women who say, oh, you ain't doing this, not to my child. We could even have some grandmothers who say, you ain't doing this to my grandchild. What are the terms that we use for courage? How can we live with courage? How can we have courage? How do we expect courage to be a part of our faith if we're not willing to stand up sometime and say, listen now, this is not right. We've been overtaken by the world, and I hate it. But, you know, in spite of all this, we're raising good kids today. In spite of everything the world's trying to do, I see a lot of good kids. The only thing I enjoyed about teaching was the good kids. But there's enough bad kids that made me say, God, I can't do this. Deliver me from this evil. And God delivered me from it. I was never meant to be a teacher. I couldn't do that. Well, I love our teachers, man. Exciting. Unless they teach bad stuff. Faith. Jochebed said, I got faith, but with my faith I got courage. But she said something else in there. She said, I have an unshakable trust in God. Because she was taught what God would do. See now, remember now, they're in bondage, right? They've been in bondage for 450 years. And we're on the verge here, Moses just being born, so I hope you can remember. I want to ask you to answer. Remember how old Moses was when he led the children of Israel out? That's how close we are, him being born, to him leading the children of Israel out. Even growing up on the assumption that he was not a Hebrew. But God's timing was impeccable. And so he had a mother who had faith. But not only that, she had trust. 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 Easy to say, isn't it? I trust the Lord. I trust the Lord. You ever seen a mama freak out when she didn't want her child to go somewhere? Because she's worried sick about him? Don't get in that car, don't go with that, you know. My fear was, you want me to let my child ride with you in that car when I wouldn't ride with you? Of course, I wouldn't ride with nobody. I was afraid of everybody. Trust. You know what she said? She said, I love you so much that I trust that God will look after you as I take my hands off of you and let somebody else raise you. You want to talk about trust. She never doubted God. How did God work it out? What happened? What did Mary, if you read just the first 10 verses, guess who intercedes in all this? The daughter, Miriam, intercedes in it. She goes to Pharaoh's daughter and says to Pharaoh's daughter, would you like me to get a Hebrew midwife to help raise the child? Who'd she go get? She goes get Jochebed, the very mother of the child. And so Jochebed gets to raise the child for a few years. But then she has to surrender that child back to Pharaoh's daughter. Sometimes we have to love and trust God enough to let our children go. I wish I could get this thought in our minds. Did you know that resisting your child sometimes only leads to more division? How much do we trust God? Jochebed, she had this trust. She said, Lord, I don't want to give him up. I'm not going to let him die. He didn't die, but she had to do what she promised God. And God promised her something. And she held to the promise of God. Have you ever read enough of the Bible to know that God made you a promise? God would look after you, know. And we see death as such a finality. But sometimes, I have to say to parents, sometimes death is an escape from this world. Sometimes we have to trust God enough to say, Lord, I can't talk them out of this. Can you deliver them from it? And God will, one way or the other. Trust. We're going to trust God. That's hard to do. Hard to do. You've heard me mention sometime about, I know Angie remembers some. She doesn't remember much, but when Roger was in Vietnam, and, you know, we as a family all went to Fort Bend to see him off, you know. Got sent to Vietnam, and of course back in the 60s, the Vietnam War was not the best war to be in. It was not what you call a war. It was you didn't have one troop against another troop. You had Army soldiers, Marines, dressed in uniform fighting people in civilian clothes. You didn't know who the enemy was. You didn't know. The prayers that I could hear Mama say at night. These are things that I remember her saying, Lord, I trusted you with my son. That's kind of the way she was. When I would go to her and say, Mama, won't you leave Daddy? No, God told me he was going to do this. And you know, I couldn't shake my mama's trust in God no matter how much I begged and how much I pleaded. Because when you trust God completely, you trust him forever. I watched over 20-something years waiting on God to do something with my daddy, and he did it. It sure wasn't because of my faith. It sure wasn't because I said, oh, Lord, I trust you. It was because I had a mother who said, God, I trust you. You said you would do this, and you'll do it. How deep is your trust? How far do you go in trust with God? Do you trust your children with God completely? Just think about the lives that were gone. I thought about Elizabeth too, you know, when the angel of the Lord come to her, and you go to Luke chapter 1, you see the angel coming, and of course, she's the first to get pregnant because John the Baptist is about 6 months prior to Jesus coming, and John the Baptist is designed to be the forerunner. But there's a wonderful story in Luke, if you read it, about when Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, goes to see Mary, who is going to be the mother of Jesus. And they meet, and it's an extraordinary story now, where one mother looks at another mother, and both of them realize that God has done something special for them, and they have to actually trust God with what's going to happen. She knew John came to be the forebearer of Jesus. She knew that Jesus was called for greatness. Do you know, one of the things that shocks me in these stories, every mother knows, Lois and Eunice, mother and grandmother, they knew the child that they were bearing was called for a purpose and a reason. That little verse I read you, remember? Jochebed looked at Moses and said, he is a goodly child. Go look at that word goodly in the scripture. He's something exceptional about him. You know, have you ever looked at your child and realized there's something exceptional about them? Special about them? Something you can't understand? Did you know that God's got his hand on every child that's born in our life? Did you know somebody will be born today who may one day be president? We don't know it. Maybe some little boy running the backyard. I read a remarkable story about a young man up in New Jersey. And he had a little sister. She was 13. He was a senior, headed toward his senior year of high school. He's a basketball superstar. All these colleges want him. But he got sick before school started. They couldn't figure out what's wrong. Finally, they took him to a specialist, and the specialist says he's got stage 4 leukemia. He's dying. And the parents just fell apart. But the remarkable thing is what that son did. He said, you've taught me faith. You've taught me to trust God. Why should I refuse to trust him now? That's a little senior in high school. Read the rest of that story. It's a great, you get it in the Wall Street Journal. It's a great story in the Wall Street Journal. And the young man, he refused. He went through 4 chemo treatments that should have brought him to his knees before basketball season, yet he was on the floor playing on the first game. He became the leading scorer in New Jersey basketball history. He's now in his first year in college as a basketball scholarship winner, and he's cancer-free. And if you listen to him, he says, I'm not cancer-free because I beat cancer. I'm cancer-free because I trusted God. Now that's something that was passed on to him by his mother and father. Trust. You know, they tell us this. Some of you good nurses in here probably know this. The real secret to overcoming some things is courage and faith and believing that God can when he says he will. What time is it? Oh, Lord. I ain't getting nowhere else with it, am I? I'm just going to stop right there. Listen, it's a great Mother's Day. It's a little cloudy outside. You got no church to go to tonight. We don't have church. Treat your mother to a great lunch. Don't just drive over to the house and throw your gift out the window and go on down the road, okay? Take the time to love your mothers today. I wonder, do you have faith? Do you have the kind of faith we're talking about? Do you have the courage that we're talking about? Do you have that trust that we need to have? I love that song we sang earlier. He's been so good to me. Oh. Someday you'll wake up and you'll say, God's been good to me. If you can't say it today, you'll say it one day. God's been good to us. God's been good to all of us. I don't know how we can't trust him. I look at Dennis back there.